Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today we're going to be talking over patch 6.0e, giving you guys the updates on the balance changes and how this kind of impacts the meta, and also kind of rating the patch at the end. So we're just going to go right into the changes. So starting off, we have Tryndamere, who they did give a buff to. So they're making his first ability passive now give you more bonus damage per percent health lost. So basically you get more damage, the lower you are, and they're buffing that amount. And then they're also making the second ability reduce damage by an additional 5%. Overall, these are rather significant buffs, honestly. Like, Tryndamere, not really an extremely good champion, but a lot of one tricks on Tryndamere know how he works really well and are able to make him work. If you get to late game Tryndamere, you can fully turret dive like any squishy to mid health champion and literally just like one shot them. And then get out, with your ultimate. So he's definitely not a bad champion. He's kind of one of those champions that like you have to play a lot just to know the damage on and to know how deep you can go with your ultimate and like have the kind of the timing down and everything. So for Tryndamere mains, I definitely think this is a really big deal and like it'll help them out a lot. But I don't think for like the general meta that he's going to be super strong still, because a lot of people just don't know how to play this champion that well and don't know how to get a lot of value out of him. But yeah, overall pretty solid buff. I do think Tryndamere will definitely be a lot stronger after this. Okay, and then we have Nasus getting a buff, and for those who watch my meta reports frequently, you almost always will hear me say that I think Nasus is one of the most underrated champions in the game, and they're buffing one of the most underrated champions in the game, which might make him more properly rated because people will actually think about him, but also, in my opinion, is going to make him kind of broken. So they're making his first ability cooldown go down by 0.5 seconds per level. They're making the mana consumption at full level go down by 5, and the base damage of that ability will also go up by 5 at level 2, by 10 at level 3, and by 15 at max level, which is a decent little bit as well. And then the armor reduced on his third ability is going up by 5% per level as well. So honestly, these are like pretty solid buffs on a champion who, in my opinion, was already strong. Like, Nasus already can survive a lot of lanes because even though he is a weak early game champion, he's pretty tanky and he's hard to actually punish, especially if he does, manage his wave well and is able to get to level 5. And once he hits 5, he has good survivability. And then once he scales up with his stacks, he's, pretty much going to be able to carry most games in the late game. So yeah, honestly, I think that this champion, if you're looking for an underrated champion that not a lot of people play and you like those late game scaling champions, Nasus is definitely going to be pretty broken right now, in my opinion. Okay, then we have Twitch, and Twitch's third ability is getting a bonus of 5 damage per level, per stack that you have on people. So just basically a bit more damage overall that you're going to have on Twitch. I don't think this changes his place in the meta that much. Obviously, it helps out because a buff always helps, but to me, he's still going to be in a similar place where you can play Twitch if you have something like a Lulu, Melio, Yuumi. Some of these types of enchanters work really well with Twitch, especially Twitch Lulu is still a really, really good combo. But Twitch's damage in the early game and is just early game strength as a whole, when you don't have one of these steroid supports to kind of buff you in the late game, is just not really worth picking. So yeah, pretty much pretty similar in the meta. Twitch still not very good, but works with those enchanters that we spoke about. And after that, we have Yone. So they're buffing Yone's base stats. He's going to get more attack damage. I think growth attack damage means attack damage per level. So it's going from 3.6 to 4. If it means something else, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And then his Soul Unbound, which is his third ability, is getting a lower cooldown, going down by 1 second at level 2, going down by 2 seconds at level 3, and going down for 3 seconds at level 4 or at max level. So, I mean, this makes him able to use his third ability a bit more frequently in the later parts of the game. I don't think this changes a ton for Yone as a whole, because a lot of times you're getting like one third ability off, then you use your full combo in the mid to late game, you kill someone, and then at that point maybe you're like already and you're doing some damage. Maybe your third ability comes up by then, but like I feel like usually it's not going to. So I don't think this really changes a whole lot, frankly. I think the bonus attack damage will be more beneficial, but as a whole, Yone was already a pretty strong champion, pretty middle of the table to slightly stronger, and I think he's going to be a very similar champion still, so I don't think this does much for him. Okay, so then Aatrox is getting both a buff and a nerf. That's really just a buff for the most part. So his first ability is getting a lower cooldown by 1 second every level, and then it's getting 5% bonus attack damage scaling per level as well. So it's going to do a lot more damage, and you're going to be able to use it more often. However, they're nerfing the movement speed that he gets from his ultimate when his ultimate is level 2 and level 3. So it's going down by 5% at level 2 and down by 10% at level 3. Frankly, I don't think this percentage of movement speed increase is really going to be noticed super significantly. I guess maybe if you're like an Aatrox one trick, you might notice that, but I don't think this really does a lot different. I still think he's going to be able to catch out the same champions or run away, from the same champions he was able to run away from before. So I don't think the ultimate nerf really does anything, and the Q, you know, doing more frequent damage and doing more damage, I think is a pretty big deal. Aatrox to me was already strong, really good into kind of tankier champions as well, and immobile champions who are kind of easy to land his like sweet spots on. So yeah, if you're looking for a really solid top laner and even jungler to play, Aatrox is definitely going to be really good in this meta. Okay, so then we have Lux getting a nerf. So a lot of people tell me Lux is broken. I think those people are stupid, but I think a lot of people are stupid, so you know, that doesn't really mean much. I do think Lux is a very annoying champion though, and it looks like she's performing well, especially probably in lower rank games, I would imagine. And so because of that, they're nerfing her overall. They're nerfing her passive base damage, but keeping the scaling a bit higher so that it'll still be relatively similar strength in the late game, but nerfing the early game scaling. First ability is getting just base damage of 10, nerfed at every level, and then the shield is getting a lower base damage or base shielding, but it's going to get higher AP scaling, which again makes it weaker in the early game, but probably similar strength in the late game compared to what it was before. Overall, does this really change Lux's place in the meta much? I don't think so at all. I think Lux is still in support role, a great champion to pair with champions like Varus or Caitlyn that have good CC to follow up and good early game kind of, you know, burst damage and stuff like that, and poke and that type of thing. I think in mid lane, she's essentially just a worse version of other burst mages that are just stronger than her, such as Syndra, for example, but she's not bad in mid lane, and so I think that really overall she's going to be very similar in those roles. And yeah, this to me, this balance change doesn't change much at all. Okay, then we have Gnar, and what they're doing to Gnar is they're lowering the slow that his first ability does and the base damage of his first ability, and then his second ability passive is getting less max health damage, so overall a pretty significant nerf. I think the first ability nerf makes a lot of sense because the first ability is so easy to land. It's such a fast projectile. So it getting less benefit, you know, less damage, less slowing, definitely very good in my opinion that they nerfed that. And then the second ability, passive as well, is very good for melting through tanks. So it also makes sense that they nerfed this. Overall, Gnar was really strong, so they decided to lower his, you know, overall kind of strength. And I still think he's going to be a solid champion, definitely really good. I've seen a lot of Gnars popping off in my games. Yeah, I don't think he's an absolutely top tier top laner anymore, but I do think he's still going to be really solid for sure. Okay, and then we have a nerf to what is, in my opinion, or at least what was the best champion in the game, which is Zed, especially in the jungle. He was absolutely broken in the jungle, and frankly, I think he still is. And this actually is something that really confuses me, because they say, we noticed that Zed's jungle presence has been too oppressive due to his mobility and low cooldown on his ult, which made it hard for people to confront him. But then they didn't change his mobility, and they didn't change his cooldown on his ult. So if they knew specifically what it was that made him broken, and then they didn't change that, I don't really understand why they even said that. However, him getting some nerfs makes sense to me, right? So they did say that they were going to nerf him in the jungle, which is why they nerfed his first ability's damage to monsters, so that his jungle clear speed is going to be slower. And then they also nerfed his damage on his third ability pretty decently as well, 5 base damage per level, and then also 5% less AD scaling, and the subsequent damage is lowered by 10%. So that's good. I still think Zed will be completely broken in both jungle and mid lane because his ult cooldown and his mobility, which Riot Games knows, and I'm being kind of condescending here, but they literally have said specifically this and didn't change it, so I don't really understand why, if they know what's broken, they don't change what's broken, and instead they just nerf his jungle clear speed a little bit, which won't really change anything very significantly at all. So yeah, I don't know, that really confused me. I guess they just knew that that's what's broken, but they still want that to be where the power is in his kit, so they just wanted his jungle clear speed to be worse so that he's still really strong in mid lane. That's what they said here, but I still find that to be a very weird statement overall. But you know, either way, at least Zed is a little worse. I still think he's going to be super broken, so if you guys are a Zed main or anything, don't be worried, your champion is still broken. But yeah, that's about all I have to say on Zed. Okay, and then lastly, we have a Teemo nerf. So a lot of people might be confused at why Teemo's getting a nerf, but honestly, a lot of times when people ask me about Teemo's strength, like I'm saying, like I actually think he's a pretty good champion. I feel like he is really underrated, and I think especially in lower ranks where people don't know about, you know, mushrooms or grabbing sweeper, that type of thing, he's definitely going to perform pretty well. So they're nerfing his passive a little bit just by its overall like damage per champion level. Now it's going to be multiplied by 2 instead of multiplied by 3, so just basically a little less damage on his passive, and then also less damage on his blinding dart, 10 less base damage per level, and 5 less AP scaling per level. Or not per level, just AP scaling. I don't know why I said per level. But anyways, overall, I do think this kind of changes Teemo. I mean, it's nothing crazy, right? But nerfing his damage, he's kind of basically a champion focused around doing a bunch of damage, so obviously nerfing his damage is going to make him weaker. But as a whole, I still think Teemo is going to be a pretty middle of the pack champion. He's not bad, but he's not obviously OP or anything like that. Really good late game scaling, really good objective control, all those types of things. So yeah, that's going to be it. There's some skins coming out. If you guys like skin, there's a Yumi skin, so if any of you buy this, I do hate you, and I hope you unsubscribe to my channel. But apart from that, that's really all I have to say about the patch notes. Overall, I would probably say it's like a C+. I mean, I think these nerfs to the champions that are strong are like weird nerfs, like the Zed nerf. I think they buffed some champions like Nasus that I just don't really know why they buffed. So yeah, overall, those are my thoughts on the patch. Probably not the best patch ever, but I'm sure they have access to stats and data that suggest that these are champions that needed nerfs or buffs. You know, they probably know better than a random YouTuber who is making YouTube videos in his college dorm. So I will trust them despite not agreeing, and I'll see you guys later.